This is Jeffrey Pease from Message Mechanics. I'm talking today with Ryan Eghari, founder of the digital development company Raidon Inc. What does Raidon Inc. do?
80% of my time I spend on building what I call digital products for clients to help them automate work. So that's really, it's focused on building web applications. That's 80%. And then the other 20% is product work, which right now is the matching algorithm called RMatch.
Okay. How has the current situation affected your business, your company, if it has?
Every interaction that I have is already remote. So when this happened, I mean, just to give you an example, I was already quarantined before before the quarantine happened. So there hasn't, I mean, my personal life has obviously changed, but from a business standpoint, there's almost no difference, which I suppose is I'm extremely grateful for and extremely lucky, because most people, I don't think that's the case. Most people are experiencing, a huge problem right now. And so that's where I feel that it's a duty to essentially grow as fast as I possibly can, to be able to have the opportunity to hire people, to be able to just create. Because the way I think about it is, there seems to be a big opportunity to build. Like you can make a lot of things right now. There's a lot of people with a lot of free time. So you can really build tons of products. And so that's, when I get on the phone with people, that's what I'm trying to encourage them to do. And it seems like the way out, right? The way out seems forward, not back. I don't think that you're going to, everyone who's losing their jobs and everyone who's experiencing financial problems. I don't think that that's, well, I don't think my business is going to solve that at all. That's a huge problem. But whatever little part I can do to hire as many, designer, copywriter, engineer, anything, I'm going to do my best.
So have you actually seen sort of an increase in demand for the kind of digitization that you do?
Yeah, so the weird thing is, I've seen a lot of people who are family friends with me, personal, asking me for almost not exactly what I do, but asking me for, like, can you set up Zoom links, and can you set up Zoom, which is not really what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But there seems,
but it indicates something.
Yeah. There's definitely a need for essentially, it's weird because it's almost like there are two worlds, It's like there's a bunch of people who have never used a Zoom link, and now they're jumping into, okay, I can use Zoom, and I can use Google Docs, and I can use these things, which I think a lot of the people that I work with have just assumed that that's how work is. Like,
yeah, it's like breathing. Exactly.
So there's almost two worlds, and it seems like the pandemic has forced the older world to just come and collide, and not necessarily older, but just the two worlds. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. The two worlds to collide. And that's why I think it's exciting, because it seems like there are a lot of opportunities to build, especially, and that's why I've been working on changing the messaging. I guess to your point about what have you done differently, or what are you trying to do differently? It's probably changing the messaging to, instead of aiming at people who are already in tech, which most of the work I do is people who already know exactly what they want. They know the APIs they want. They know what the tech that they want. It's transitioning some of that messaging to people who maybe, maybe someone who runs a hospital, and they're having trouble allocating beds, and they had never thought to use an algorithm to be able to solve who should go to what bed, or something like that.
So do you expect to see sort of another wave of clients that might be less your traditional, like sort of the digital laggard clients coming in?
I'm not 100% convinced that it's going to work as predictable as that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just that's why I hesitate to make large claims, or to be like, oh, the pandemic has caused people to go remote and now the future of work is remote. Like I'm not convinced uh, that everything is going to go so predictably.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think the one thing that I'm pretty certain is that there are definitely opportunities that are going to come out of this pandemic, but I really, I really don't think it's going to be predictable. Like I don't see like, oh, now everyone does remote work, or oh, now everyone does digital work, or oh, now everyone should be a technology company.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not 100% convinced on that.
So there may be a couple of different streams coming. One would be people that just need to be able to do what they did before, if they can, digitally from home, as in, can your parents now use a Zoom link?
Yep. Yep.
And then there's another potential, sort of bigger transformation that probably not everybody will take on board equally, that will affect more of what kinds of work gets done.
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah. Like my dad is a lawyer, and this has caused him to, normally he sees clients in the office. Normally uh, you know, he's in the office with all of his employees. He doesn't have any remote employees. He's one of the people who asked me how to set up a Zoom link.
Yeah, and it's hard to say no when it's your dad.
Exactly. So things like that, I can definitely see that stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Getting onto Slack, working on working on their remote team dynamic, things of that nature. But what I've really been working on before that is, like, before the pandemic, is how can we take some of the business processes that you're already doing, and digitize them so that you can focus on maybe something even more difficult. So without getting too romantic about everything, it's kind of like uh, the old agriculture example.
Mm-hmm.
When we went from, we were doing our farming. I mean, sorry, we were doing our gathering of food, and then at some point, we started to uh, we started agriculture. We started to farm, and that was essentially a technological advancement that allowed us to automate some work, which then allowed people to focus on other more interesting things. And as advanced as we are as a society, it seems like there is still a ridiculous number of things that people do that I don't think that they want to do. And I think that there's a lot of human potential that just goes untapped because people are filling out a spreadsheet, or, doing something that probably could be automated. But these are just my thoughts.
Well, your thoughts are useful. And the thing is, you're in an interesting position because your business sort of has the purpose of automating and digitizing work that doesn't necessarily have to be done by hand. You had that vision and that cause before any of this happened. But from what you're describing, it doesn't sound like you think that people can just go back to how it was. So there's something more there. So what, if you were talking to a business that maybe isn't already heavily digitized, isn't already a part of the world where, yeah, we know our APIs. How would you advise that? What would you advise that business to be doing and thinking about to come out of this, not like as it was, but better?
I just stick with the example of my dad. So because I talk to my dad often, I have a great relationship with him. And when I think about his business, there are really some things that are very difficult to digitize, and there is a way that the world works that has been accepted. So, for instance, like there's notarizing of letters that has to be sent through the mail or something like that. Um, and to me, that just it blows my mind because I'm like, what do you mean we have to wait 3 days for this part of the process to be sent by mail and then received? Like, it doesn't compute. And the ID, the way that we identify is with a stamp, um, which would never be acceptable online. Like if I tried to sign in with my, to Gmail with a picture of a stamp, like that's not secure at all. That's obviously not secure. So there's a lot of the way that the world already works and is accepted, um, that would have to change. And so there's some, I guess to make this not so long-winded, there are some businesses that don't have those things that are very deeply ingrained in society and accepted, that probably can digitize an entire business process, maybe even an entire business, and automate like 80% of the work, which I think that, this is as good as time as ever. I think really pandemic independent, it's a good idea to expand, and make your business more efficient so that your people can work on more important things. The pandemic being such a world shaking event really starts to make you question, and allows you to ask the question, like, why do we use a stamp? And can we maybe, use an online identifier, and which would then allow us to have that entire process be digitized, which would then allow us to automate 90% of that process. It's a very difficult thing because a lot of pieces have to change to have a full overhaul. But that's a lot of times, if it's a smaller piece, if it's a smaller business process, that you can use to augment your business, I would advise doing that, right? Because then you don't have to like change in industry to be able to do it. You can just, augment, like like the university example I gave in the beginning, where they wanted to have their experiment run digitally. That's a great thing, because there's still there's a ton of bureaucracy in their experiment process, but they just took out a little piece of it, the actual experiment, and digitized that. They didn't try and go for the whole enchilada and digitize all of the experiment process. So yeah, I would say probably start small, but really to have the most impact, you have to go all the way. It doesn't really make massive change unless you make massive change.
And a time of disruption does sometimes create openings for that. People are probably open now to doing work digitally that previously they would never have considered.
There's kind of a bet here going on that people with existing businesses are going to make the leap and start massively digitizing a lot of their business, which history has shown is not what happens. Like Blockbuster did not hire Raidon to build Netflix. You know what I mean? Like they did not hire a digital agency to build them a digital product. Like
they just got replaced instead.
They got replaced, yeah. And so it seems to me like, as much as I'm, now I'm essentially anti-selling, I'm like selling against myself. But it seems to me like that's probably the way it'll happen. Probably what's going to happen is, and it has been happening, is that companies are just going to get replaced.
Mm-hmm. So there's an opportunity for those willing and able to change, and there's an opportunity for those that are going to replace the ones that don't make that adaptation.
Yeah, and I to be completely honest with you, I actually don't think that it's so tied to the virus. Like I think this has been happening. This has been happening for, you know, well, for as long as I've been alive. Like I don't I don't think this is really anything new. I think just what's happening is the virus is causing people to take a step back and be like, wow, if if I can hide in my house for a month, what else did I previously think was set in stone that maybe is not set in stone?
Yeah, I
Right.
think a lot of businesses are still in survival right now. Like, are we going to make payroll? Are we going to be able to continue? You know, are we going to be able to operate? You know, the opportunity or the building of resiliency, I think, is perhaps a following wave that we're gonna, if we see it, it's on a little bit of a delay, like you talked about.
Yeah. Which is interesting because like who knows if it's on a delay, who knows how big it's gonna be.
Yeah, and a lot probably has to do with how long this goes on and what new things look like. Like how much flood resiliency you need to build is based on your best guess at how often these huge floods are going to come and how severe they're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of being able to take work out of the traditional workplace or to digitize processes that previously required, human interaction. I guess kind of the level of necessity people to attribute to that is still to be seen, but I
Yeah.
think it's coming.